Thank you so much for being with us here on this Friday. We are here on a Friday. Can you believe it? Quite a surprise because we are normally here on a Saturday with you, and what we're doing for the summer is just taking things a little bit easier, a little bit easygoing. And so I think I mentioned on the last episode that I have something that I've been invited to for Saturday, and so I want to make sure I clear my that part of my day anyway for the invitation, for taking in the invitation to attend a couple of events that I've been invited to, musical events, of course. So if all goes well and I happen to attend those, then guess what? I'm going to be talking about those, if not the following week, probably the week after. I'm still on the table. I still have some things on the table for next week. I'm thinking I should probably either revisit an episode and play that episode for you, or if I should go ahead and tell you about the weekend if it turns out that I attend these musical events. So it's so nice to be here in the greater New York City area where there's so many things happening in terms of music events. But today's show is a special show. It's actually my first dedication. I am dedicating today's show to my students who love Christmas songs. It just turns out that they do. I didn't know I was going to inherit students that love Christmas songs that much, that they want to keep those songs going year-round, and they do. So today's episode is dedicated to Christmas chords. It's dedicated to my students that love Christmas songs, and they celebrate Merry Christmas songs year-round. I think it helps them. I think it helps them with their stress for practicing piano. I think it helps them to play. I think it helps them by playing songs that they really, really like and enjoy, like Jingle Bells and fun, like sing-along Christmas songs. And so it came to mind that it's kind of what the Leaf Rakers do. Have you ever heard of the Leaf Rakers? Raise your hand if you ever heard of the Leaf Rakers. It's a closed group, and so if you happen to be part of that group, then you know that they are known for celebrating fall year-round. So these are the group of individuals that are excited about pumpkin hatch and pumpkin spice and pumpkin spicy and fall and things of that nature. And so they're posting photos of things that are associated with fall, and they cannot stop talking about fall. And so I have some students like that. They really want to learn to play songs out of season. And as I was searching on the internet, I was seeing that it's not an uncommon idea in some places. In some places, they even celebrate summer with Christmas songs or with a Christmas theme, or they have a summertime Christmas something or other going on. And so I think it's probably more common than we realize. But here we are, we're getting ahead of the game. So if you happen to be that person that wants to learn more about Christmas songs and some of the chords that are involved, and you start to put together your sing-along groups and start to think about the songs that you may play for others, then today's episode is for you too. So thank you so much for being here today. And today's show is pre-recorded, so you're going to hear it once I post it, but we are not live. If we do anything live tomorrow, it probably will be to just do a short promo to say, hey, it's Saturday, but we're not really doing a live episode the way we would normally do it. This is just a shout out to say, keep listening, because next week we have some cool things planned for you too. So, some of the songs that we will talk about today are old, and some are new arrangements, and some are new, believe it or not, because if you start to think about, well, who's putting out new Christmas songs? And I've heard in the industry that if you really want to put out an album that has to do with Christmas, just be prepared to not have that album be one of the top albums on the charts. But it may be a popular album, but it may or may not be the top album. So for some reason they were saying that Christmas albums do not sell as well as other albums. I don't know. I've heard different things, and it maybe has to do with the fact that if you are playing cover songs that are not yours, or even if you make up your own Christmas songs, it's still not as popular as other albums outside of the season. So, but anyway, it's interesting to see some of the publications that have come across the years. I mean, I'm looking at old publications and republished old publications, if that makes sense. And as you listen to the episode, I really want you to think about the chords. It's still, believe it or not, our Chords for All series. We are slowly phasing that out as we come to the end of July. And I wanted to do a slow fade on the course because I really wanted you to think about what were your 12 weeks that you could take away for yourself and then go off and do your own thing when it comes to chords. And so some of the publications that we will use for today are from the 1950s. And one reason why I'm so interested in talking about the 1950s is because I have people in my family that were studying piano around that time. And I'm just thinking, how in the world that they learn piano and to play so well? Was this more peer-directed learning, or was this more teacher-directed learning? And so, I'm not a sociologist or anything like that, but, just having those conversations to say, when I was coming along, I definitely had formal lessons. So how did you learn to play piano? And so those conversations are always very enlightening. So to see some of the publications that were out, though, in the 1950s, and just wondering how you were able to get your hands on those publications, depending on where you were in the U.S. and who had access to those publications. So anyway, thank you so much for listening today. Now, before we jump into the Christmas songs, because what I'm going to do is turn my music down, and then I'm going to turn it back up once I come back to this area, but I'm going to leave the area and then actually do some playing today. And then if you happen to be with us over at the CMajor radio show, I will not be doing any playing over there today, but let me give you a heads up. For the fall, we are thinking about changing our approach to writing down music. Now, I can't really say much more than that right now, but I want you to hang with us because I'm finding out so many interesting things, and it really has to do with my students. The more I work with my students of all ages and all abilities, adults and school-age children and parents and families that want to know more about music, it's just really, really, really interesting to know how they see music making, how it should be. I have students that want to play the popular songs, the songs that will impress their peers. And then I have families that say to me, we only want our children to play those popular songs. They should be able to play a song from start to finish within a year and feel confident about that and entertain our family. And then you have the families that say, no, none of this popular stuff. Don't teach our children that. Teach our children the proper, quote-unquote, proper way of playing. And we want them to learn classical music. I was talking with a family member recently, and that was the idea that this family member had, was that learning to play, and the family member used the term classics, not classical, classics. Learning to play the classics was the way to go. So you have so many different ways of thinking. But hang with us, because over at the CMajor radio show, we're really going to take an interesting turn. We've really tried to stick to the music theory way of writing down music, but I think we're going to change that and tweak that a little bit. And it really has to do with some research that was started and even though it's incomplete research, I want to dabble in it a little bit with you and just to see how you think about it, because I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing that my students are doing this, and I want to jump into that a little bit and see what that feels like. It can be very tedious to write down music the way that they are doing it, but it's familiar to me once I started to do the private teaching and to see how students had already decided to teach themselves and to learn among themselves, learn among their peers and so forth. And so it's really, really interesting. So hang on for that, because I think you're going to be very, very intrigued with what we do going forward. And probably in the fall. I would say we'll probably launch that in September. So please stand by. It is definitely Flashback Friday here on CMajor Before the Show. I'm going to put up a couple of publications that I want to share with you before we change our location. These publications are important, I think, to music making, because it's come across my desk recently that it's something that I should pay attention to. So, back in a moment. You're here on CMajor Before the Show. You're here on CMajor Before the Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. By the way, we are available on Apple Podcasts. I'm very grateful that we are, and so stay tuned for any announcements about that. That's what I'm trying to say. Stay tuned for any further announcements about that. But I believe you can still find us on Apple Podcasts at this time, and of course on Spreaker.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And so, what came across my desk this week, very interesting, was the idea of working with or teaching music, teaching piano to visually impaired students and hearing impaired students. I really didn't have much information about either. Now, I have worked with students of all ages and abilities up to this point, but I can say I have not taught piano to deaf students, but apparently there are some publications out there that support this, and so I wanted to just mention it on the podcast in case it ever came up. And again, for some reason it came across my desk, and so as a musician and a person who deals with both the music business and the deaf world, I assumed, as many do, that students with hearing loss would never hear, understand, or appreciate music. So this is a publication that was put out in, I believe it's 2000, let's see the date on that publication. I think it was around 2013. You can check it out for yourself, but it was published in a blog by a particular publisher, and this person that's writing the blog is talking about music education. So feel free to look that up. If you just want to Google search teaching music to deaf students, I think you'll be able to find this article very interesting. And so fortunately, as I began talking with fellow interpreters in schools, I learned that many deaf children, both with and without hearing aids and implants, were in music classes. So this is what the blogger is saying. This was enlightening and encouraged me to investigate instrumental music classes for deaf students and the incorporation of sign language into choral programs. So imagine that. This just sounds really, really wonderful for anyone who has this particular challenge. I would say it would be a challenge at first if you've never done it. And so they also cite NAFME and saying, there's a report out there to talk about the quality of music being produced and so forth. And then they talk about music classes, and they talked about hearing impaired children as they participate in instrumental music programs. So this seems like this is something that's more geared towards classes, but I do wonder if there are private lessons for students that may be hearing impaired. I wonder if there are. So look into that if you want. It's something that, again, that came across my desk, and it's now in my mind, because you never know when you may be faced with that. But we want to include everyone here on the podcast. I recently also looked at this publication that came out for classes for adults of all ages and abilities, and I was wondering if they address this at all, but I don't really see any indication of that. I think it really means that if you are old and you want to learn to play the piano, you are never too old to play the piano. And then if you are able to play the piano, but for some reason you lost that ability as a child, and now you're coming back to that, and so you want to improve your skills. I think that's what that means. But anyway, there's another article, or there's some research rather, and this is from a very widely known publication in the research field for music education, teaching music to the visually impaired student in a standard school setting. So again, they're talking about in a standard school setting where I think you would either have the proper setup to do something like this, and of course the right professionals in place that can really know what to do. And so just know that we have things like this in the back of our mind. As they come across our desk, we'll bring them to your attention. If you have any questions, we want to be on standby to be able to address something like this as needed. And so just know we really have in mind for everyone to be able to play the piano no matter what. I think that the limitations will become less and less as we go on with improving technology. And so as the medical profession develops, the tools that it will develop, if that's the right way of expressing that. But this abstract, I want you to pay attention to this. It's an article that talks about visual impairment, and actually from a journal of visual impairment. So if you happen to see this, it just says in the abstract, in former times, visually impaired students were often placed in special schools. This policy is beginning to change, and young people with varying degrees of sight deficiency are now being integrated into standard classroom settings. Such a strategy may pose substantial problems for the specialist music teacher who may have had little training in this or any field of special education. So that comes across my desk too. This just the idea of being a special education teacher, because I've had students where we had to address some of the issues, and the parents were supportive of that, and we got the right setting for the student and the right approach. And so it's an actual paper that talks about the kinds of information that a music educator may require to cope with the needs of a visually impaired student in a standard classroom setting. So if you need to find out more information about that, I can point you toward those journals and the blogs that are addressing those further, so you have a real solid support for this topic, because we don't claim to know everything, but we do show interest in what you are interested in. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And that just came to mind too, because I felt like it was a little timely for talking about Christmas carols and sometimes playing songs that are familiar, songs you don't even realize that are familiar to you. And you want to be able to share that with everyone in your circle. How do you do that? And so now what I'm going to do is change my location, and I'm going to turn the music back up. So you'll hear me leave this location and go to the location where the piano is sitting there waiting to be played. And I'll just do a little bit of playing today. So not too much playing, because we need to let you get on with your Friday evening. if you have plans for the evening. Hopefully you have nice plans. By the way, the weather is absolutely gorgeous. Now, I don't know if you were in the greater New York City area earlier this week when it was raining and there was some flooding in some areas. It was really something else. But here we are at the end of the week. Super nice outside, so we couldn't ask for better weather. Okay, so now we're leaving this area. I'm going to take all of my Christmas books and I'm going to go to the piano. And then we'll come back down. We'll end today's podcast. We'll talk a little bit about what we might decide to post for next week. And then I will invite you to come over to the CMajor radio show, where I'm going to be calling out chord changes for you to write down and see if this is something you can find for yourself. Okay, so you're going to hear a variety of sounds in the background. Never mind that. Okay, as we aim to change our location here. How's your summer been so far? Hopefully it's been nice. Except for that one week where we had the heat wave. I can say overall it's really been very nice. And by the way, if you are thinking about studying piano lessons online, I can say from personal experience that it is possible. It's possible because the first online piano lesson experience I had was with one of my friends. One of my musician friends that wanted to learn. And didn't really have the time to learn. Okay, here we go. There's also a publication that came across my desk this week too. And, the music stand just fell over. And they were talking about the use of the pedal. So if you can, check out that because apparently there's some thought about the use of the pedal and the overuse of the pedal and pedaling. That it feels like a comfort zone. I know it does for me. But it's something that I want to address in the future because my teachers never really cautioned me about that. I think it wasn't until I read about, especially French piano music, that you shouldn't overpedal. Okay, now I have this book in front of me. I'm not going to use that book today, but I will reference this book probably in the next podcast episode or two, especially over CMajor before the show, because we want to talk again about the way we're going to approach writing down music for the future over in that podcast. Okay. So the first publication I have in hand is Christmas in Song. And I like this book because it's a treasury of traditional songs. That's literally what they wrote in the book. A treasury of traditional songs. Favorite hymns, choice carols from all ages, from many lands, selected for your singing Christmas. So if you happen to be that accompanist that has to play from this book, then I would say be really familiar with SATB. Now, I had a student recently who is, I would say, very advanced at this point. But for the first time, she's really starting to pay attention to SATB. And so it's really interesting. I like that they use this word unicinal. Okay, so let me get my light on here. And I don't really know how they have the songbook compiled. It's not a very expensive book, but if you look at the contents, everything is ABC listed alphabetically. But if you turn to the first page, it's not an ABC order. Now there's another publication where they did that. So I don't know how they chose this song to be first. And just as we were talking about the French, it happens to be a French 18th century song. Okay, so let me just play a little bit for you. Get my light on here. Is this plugged in? Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to play. Let's see, what should I play first? I think the soprano line. Okay, so we'll just stop there. Okay, and then you have the alto part. Okay, and then you have the tenor part. So I think I'm seeing some tied notes here too, so I totally ignored those. And so you probably can hold those notes that I repeated and play, sing those as a tied note if you're the singer. But they're saying this is everyone singing in unison, so I imagine that the piano player is the one that really is giving the harmony here. So in the bass. That wasn't perfect, but let's just see if I can play the whole thing now. Okay, so how did I do? I hope I did okay. So that was in 3/4 time. It's something that we will talk about more over at the CMajor radio show. By the way, CMajor before the show is really supposed to be here to support what's going to happen over at the CMajor radio show. But it turns out this show has been kind of our leading show because we really try to keep it fun and professional at the same time and to try to address some of the issues that are going on today and not just really dwell on just writing down music. And so we save that, we reserve that for the CMajor radio show. But if you do have any interest at all in writing things down, definitely see us over there. And we're going to try to liven up that show a little bit more, I think, in the fall. And again, we'll make a big announcement about that as the summer comes to an end. Okay. So let me just look here in the preface, because they're talking about the contents, and then I'll look in the back and I'll just read some titles. I'll read some titles, because some of these songs don't ring a bell with me at all. So it just says the contents include many fine examples of carols and noels, hymns of praise and worship, and merry songs, MERRY, merry songs and melodies. Some are old, having been in existence 1,000 or more years, while others are of comparatively recent origin, dating back within the memory of living man. Now, I don't know what they mean by recent, but I'll look down here at the copyright, and it's in Roman numerals, and I believe that date says 1957. So I don't know if the words to this preface has changed. I don't know if the words have changed, But if they're talking about recent origin, it probably was around the 1950s. They're talking about, because I definitely don't see any Mariah Carey in this book. Any Mariah Carey songs. You know, she had that Christmas album that came out. And so I have another book that has her song in it, so I'll be talking about that today too. Okay, so here it is. The entire volume, with a few exceptions, can be used for unisonal singing. I'd never heard that word before. I just thought singing in unison was the way we said that. Unisonal. For unisonal singing in the manner customary with music characteristically folk, F-O-L-K, while the trained choir or groups of singers experienced in part singing can readily harmonize every composition in the collection. I think that's true. So if you haven't experienced at all with part singing, then you'll know how to find your part and how to stay on your part. I actually missed that, by the way. I had an invitation, believe it or not. I'm really into invitations for some reason, but I like invitations. I had an invitation to join a choir in New York. I won't say which one. It wasn't one that I belonged to in the past. It was actually a new invitation. So I was seriously thinking about taking part in that, but I don't know if I can, especially if I have students. I don't want to take away from my teaching time to attend a choir. But I am thinking about it. If I ever get that opening in my schedule to do that, I think I want to join a choir in New York. I'm an alto, and I kind of miss part singing. It's fun. Singing is not my strong suit. Is not the most favorite way of music making for me, but there's something about group singing that I really, really like, and I liked accompanying too. I liked accompanying choirs where there was a lot of part singing going on, and that everyone knew what to do with their parts. They weren't just doing quote-unquote unisonal singing or unison singing in unison. Okay, so now let's go to the back of this because I'm very intrigued by this book. By the way, it's not expensive either. I mean, I imagine a publication for the 1950s, you can still charge a low price for it. So, I'm interested to know which one of these songs is like 1,000 years old, because if I look in the back of the book, now this is before I get to the list of the contents, we see a song that says 1947, but yet it says the text is traditional and Palestrina. His name is on it. I'm thinking, I don't think he was around in 1947. Okay, let me just play something real quick. Yeah, okay. Maybe this is one of the songs they're talking about. Okay, then, Oh Holy Night. Now, this is one of my favorite songs to teach outside of the Christmas season because we can talk about minor chords with this one. And I love this. Look at this. And the way they put it in here, too. They gave it with the nice piano accompaniment. Okay, let's see if I can play a little bit of this. You would always think I'm one of those students that really like to hear Christmas songs year-round. But it's just always a treat to open the book to something familiar. And unfamiliar, too, actually. So I'm going to get to that in a minute. I just got distracted. Okay, so now I'm going to go to A Holy Night. And I just recall when I was really, really young and I had this book. It was similar to this. I think it was called Gospel Pearls or something. But it had, first of all, it had these songs that had different note shapes. And that was always interesting to see. I'm like, why are some of these note heads triangular or looking like a diamond? I don't understand this. And then I would, find the songs that were intriguing to me. I don't know if it was Gospel Pearls or something else, but it had Oh Holy Night in it. And I just recall, thinking, wow, I'm glad I feel comfortable playing in all keys because this song has a lot of flats in it. Okay, so here we are. Okay, so already you can hear how nice that sounds. For a piano player, the digital feeling of that, the feeling in my digits, my fingers, it just feels good to play that. Okay, so the melody about that, and then the performance direction that they give you, slow and majestic. Okay, so if you're just wondering, okay, we are in the key of D flat, and so the chord that you are hearing is a D flat major chord. Now it's broken, so if you didn't know how to play broken chords in this pattern, I could show you. Any teacher should be able to show you how to play triplets on a D flat major triad. You can just use one hand. You can just do that. But I think the technical part of it, the technique and the artistry is what needs to be developed. And that's the challenge. When you get that brand new student who thinks they can go from 1 week of learning piano and by the 6th week that they're playing at this level, you just look at them and go, why do you think that? Because technique takes a long time to develop. Muscle memory takes a while to develop, especially if you have a lazy fourth finger. And the fourth finger is still considered the weakest finger, the last time I heard. And so this definitely involves the fourth finger. Okay, so there I go over pedaling again, right? Why don't I just not use the pedal so you can hear what that sounds like? Okay, and I'm probably playing it too fast because the performance direction says slow and majestic. Okay, so here we go. Let's try a little bit slower without the pedal. Here we go. It's coming back to me now as I'm looking at this. This is such a nostalgic show for me. Now I'm thinking about it because you just recall working with musicians who did not read music, but who could sing the song, and they just sounded beautiful. So when they came in, okay, so what was so interesting about that was that you had musicians, you had singers that did not know music. And I'm not laughing at them. I'm just laughing at the memory of it and just knowing how much work we had to put in to get them to come in at the right time. So here you are, you have this intro. It's in 4/4 time, right? And so to train someone to come in on beat 3 is not easy. It's not easy at all because that's where they need to come in. So you basically have 6 beats of the intro, and then to get them to not sing certain parts before they're supposed to sing certain parts, and to train them to wait because they don't know how to count. So it's very interesting, but it's possible. It's possible. Now, one thing that we didn't really talk about when I did the accompanying, I never talked with the person about the chords, And so what I think is possible, let's say if you didn't like to just start with a plain D-flat chord and stay on that, you would find the harmonic rhythm of the song and then just change it. So to me, a lot of my successful musician friends were the ones that really knew how to change the chords, but also change chords within the chord changes and really create that movement, that nice movement that everybody liked to hear, and the nice fancy chords, if you will, that they were able to put in. Okay, let's step away from that. I'm losing focus here. So let's go back to the contents. So you have quite a few songs. I will count the songs and see how many are in here. But they got them all mixed up because they put it in ABC order. But again, they don't start with the first song that begins with the letter A. They're mixing it up. Carol of the Birds. I don't think I've heard of that song before. Let's turn to that one really quickly, and then we're going to leave this book. If you want to know the title of the book, just let me know. I'll tell you, because I don't want to get in trouble thinking I can just say titles of books on my podcast and then somebody says, you could have named other books. I don't want to get in trouble with that, but I'm happy to share any resources. And actually, now I'm thinking about it, I may post it over on our blog at CMajorPorter.com. So see us over there a little bit later. I think I'm going to do that tonight. So a lot of things going on Friday night. I could have been out somewhere doing something with my musician friends, but I decided to be here with you because I really wanted to make sure we kept our promise to talk about Christmas songs in July, as we are ending July and we're ending our Chords for All series. Okay, so let's see. I thought I saw page 48. Okay, look at this. Now this is a song that has two names. So if you look it up, because you're interested to know what the song is about, it says Carol of the Birds, but I guess if you go down to Whence Comes This Rush of Wings, it's the same song. Wow. Okay. All right. So CMajor is doing a little sight reading right now because I did not know this song. Okay. So now I have it on my stand, and it just says traditional. Okay. So let me just play the soprano parts. Again, I have the advantage of being able to read SATB, and it looks like it's going to be in the relative minor, even before I hit a note. I'm just seeing. Okay, this looks like G minor. All right, let's see what happens. Singing Christmas songs in minor. It just sounds so majestic, but it sounds also just determined, if I can describe it that way. Okay, so ever plays that last chord as a major, what if you did and then go with a G major chord? Okay, so interesting. Okay, so this happens to be in the key of G minor. G minor is the relative key to B flat major, but I just played it in minor. Okay, so to play this song, according to this book, you will need to start off with a G minor chord. So get out your chord charts, look up G minor, and see if you can play that for yourself. That's all part of the discovery that we use here on CMajor before the show. Okay, let me close this book because I want to go on to other books. Now, my next book that I want to pull out is Christmas Carols. Now, this is an actual piano book. What I like about this book is that it's a piano book for beginners to play on and around middle C. So I will give you the title of this book because it has more to do with piano lessons, which is what this podcast is about. And so, what I love about this, you can see the copyright. There must have been this whole burst of just activity when it came to the 1950s and learning to play the piano, because here it is again, another publication that was copyrighted in the mid-1950s. And then in the preface it says, every child wants to learn to play Christmas carols at Christmas time. And so, here we go. Now, very short list according to what I'm seeing here. Very different. And it is in ABC order, so I like that. So you can go from Away in the Manger down to While Shepherds Watched Their Flocks. But of course, somewhere in the middle, there's Jingle Bells. So let's see. The list is in ABC order. I'm thinking about this other book. So it does not start with A. It starts with J. Jolly Old St. Nicholas. Okay, so let's play that one. Then we'll play Jingle Bells, and then we'll close this book. Okay. So again, think about the chords that are being played. If you can hear the chord changes. And how would you play that for yourself? Okay, so here we go. And I did read a little bit about how the book was set up, and apparently it gives you two versions of each song. So it gives you one version. Okay, that was a surprise. That was a surprise there. I didn't expect Whisper What You'll Bring to Me to go from. I always thought it was. Okay, so maybe we've been singing it wrong, or maybe in the 1950s they sang it as the to me was a fourth up from bring. Okay, so here we go. The second version is supposed to be a little bit more involved in terms of harmony. Now, the version that I played just now was, I did that with one hand because it felt easier to do that, but you really are supposed to be playing that with two hands. Okay, now I'm going to play with two hands. All right, and so they give me a left hand position. Okay, so my fifth finger is supposed to be responsible for two notes. Okay, we'll see what happens. Interesting. Okay. So now let's go to, and did you hear the chords in that? I didn't really play full chords, but I could have. I could have played. I could have done that. Okay, but let's go to Jingle Bells. Okay, so that's the next one. So he sings, again, to start off with the letter J for some reason. And Jolly Old St. Nicholas, it appears there's no author for that. It's just anonymous, which is interesting. Okay, so here we go. Jingle Bells. Which would be the second version, so it has a little bit more harmony going on with it. It would sound like this. I'm not really enjoying playing that version for some reason. And so, but I like what that version is doing because it really does give your left hand a workout. So you really have to be in control of your coordination. And so if you know how to alternate your hands and how to bring everything together, your fastest time value would be eighth notes. So is to, and then some piano books they just keep it a quarter note. So N would be just one note instead of as 2 eighths. So, okay. Interesting. All right. Let's go to our next publication. And I'm going to try not to overuse the word interesting today. That can get really old, I think. Okay, now. This one is what I really love because it's a text notation version of melodies that we all know. There are 23 songs, everything from Up on the Housetop to Deck the Hall. By the way, it is Deck the Hall, not Deck the Halls, plural. So I'm just going to play one song from this book, but if you want to know, again, how to find a book that has Christmas songs with 3 chords, let me know, because I have the information available. And if you like playing what they call now, if you go to some of the websites that publish music, they call them beginner notes. So if you know how to play the melody and to follow the notes up and down the staff, you shouldn't have a problem playing this. So get with a teacher, a music professional, to help you do this comfortably so you're not uncomfortable doing it. And so the other thing I love about this book is that they give you a way to put a rhythm with it. So if you have a keyboard that has rhythms, you can play a rhythm along with it if you care to. Now, what you see in the box is you see chords. So you really see an F chord. Okay, you're going to repeat that F chord and then go back. Okay, so basically all I've done so far is just go from an F chord to a C chord back to an F chord. Try to see if you can hear what the change is. And so when we get over to the CMajor radio show, I will talk to you about how to write this out. And you're going to be really surprised today. If you join us over there, you're going to be really surprised at how I have you write it out. Okay, so here. Okay, so if that sounds good to you, if that's a way that you would like to play the piano, and that sounds fine to you, and you can live with that, then I would encourage you to do that. That's what I mean when I say make the best music you can make. This is good enough for some people. And for some students, it's not good enough. They say, you know what, I want to do this tiered learning thing. I really want to get up to the more professional sounding version. So now I'm going to play another version of this song side by side so you can hear what I mean by a more professional version. And so I have students that really think this way, and it works for them. I think it works for the students that really are comfortable playing other instruments first, even if they're just monophonic instruments, and then they come to the piano seeking a different experience. So imagine you're one of those students. So you just learned to play Angels We Have Heard on High using beginner notes, but then your goal is to play it like this. So that's just an idea of an arrangement that you can put with it. And yes, this one does use pedal. Very surprising because it does say traditional French. So I imagine you would limit some of your pedaling, so it doesn't spoil the harmonies and to get in the way of the actual song. So I hope to learn more about pedaling, by the way. I know, again, there's a really great publication online and offline that is talking about that this month. So kudos to you guys for doing that. I think that's great. Now, my last Christmas caroling songbook that I'm going to introduce today. It has melody, words, and chords for 80 favorite carols and songs. Now, what surprised me about this, and it is the second edition, what surprised me about this was that the first song in the book, and it does list everything in ABC order, and then everything is in page order too, which I love. So there's no jumbling around. So you go from the first page all the way to the end. And the first song in the book that starts with the letter A, All I Want for Christmas Is You. So if you like this song, definitely check it out. I think it was at the top of the charts for this past Christmas season. But I'll just start it so you can hear a little bit of what it sounds like and then the chord that it starts with. So we are in the key of G. So if you're comfortable with your G chords, then you can play the song. The 7 chords that we talked about, it has those too. We didn't talk about 6th chords at all, but there's a C minor 6th chord in there. You can just play it as C minor if you care to. But let me just play a little bit of the melody and stop. So something like that, okay? I didn't really play that rhythmically perfect. I was just trying to think in my head how it sounds. And then, too, what they're asking me to do with the 8th notes is kind of play them more like triplets. Or play it like a quarter note going to an 8th note with a triplet feel. So I didn't really do that, but that's okay. So I have a G chord. So imagine if you're just chording along. You can actually chord the first 1, 2, 3, 4 measures with a G chord. And then I would say play 2 chords per measure just to get a simple rhythmic feel to it. So the harmonic rhythm would be more like half notes. And go to C. That C minor chord I was talking about. Okay, so I just played as a C minor triad. So see if that's something you're interested in, and then try to find the version in G. So this is Words and Music by Mariah Carey and Walter Afanasieff. I believe I'm pronouncing his name correctly. But just see if you can look this up now. This one did not come around in 1950, like some of the other Christmas songs. This was actually copyrighted in the 1990s. So 1994 is what I'm seeing here, and all the information about the music publishing and all the rights and so forth. So we have a song that's almost 21st century, but it has survived going into the 21st century. So we have a late 20th century song that has survived into the 21st century as one of the top Christmas songs. So that's our Christmas episode for today. Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and your attention. And so what I'm going to do now is just change my location because I want to give you a little bit more information about what we're thinking about doing for next week. And then we'll set up the promo to see if we will actually do that. So you're going to hear some movement here. So just bear with me for a few minutes until I can get back to my other area. Plus, when I'm in this other area, I know you hear a little bit of additional movement, and it's only because it's super warm. And so I'm going back right now to the cooler area. So hopefully you have some really nice plans for the weekend and that you're going to be keeping cool. Have friends that are traveling. Have friends that are planning to go on vacation next week. And at first, they were talking about going abroad. They were talking about going to Thailand. They were talking about going to maybe the Caribbean. And then now they're just talking about going to Virginia. I'm like, okay, that's different. Different plan than what you were talking about earlier. Okay, so if you hear some machines in the background, it's because we're still trying to keep cool. It's in the 80s and the 90s here in the greater New York City area. So, next week, join us here on CMajor Before the Show, because I'm thinking about actually posting a flashback interview, one that I think you'll be really, really interested in. And who knows, we may decide to do that in addition to having an episode, because I still want to keep you thinking about what you will be doing for your chord playing going forward in the fall. So stick around, and hopefully you'll see us next week right here on CMajor Before the Show, either as a flashback episode or a live episode where we talk about what's coming up for the fall, and also me sharing with you what I did over the weekend, because I will be seeing some of my musician friends. Let me give you a sneak preview of that. It has to do with DJs, and it has to do with jazz, believe it or not. So I have some friends that are in both worlds, and so I hope to share with you a little bit about what goes on in their world. And it's all live music too, by the way. So we're talking about a live DJ set, and we're talking about live jazz music, live R&B. I would say R&B, maybe light jazz music. So that's part of my music plans for the weekend, and I hope you have some great music plans too. Listen, make the best music you can make. Find a place to sit down and play the piano, play some chords, play some music that makes you happy. It doesn't matter what it is. Just sit down and play it. See if you can play your own songs. Find a way to write down your own songs. If you're interested in writing your own songs down, see us. We're going to be over at the CMajor Radio Show tonight. We're posting something tonight, and so look for that. It's an early post for the weekend, but I wanted to make sure you had it just in case we were going to be doing other things on Saturday. So thank you so much for tuning in to CMajor Before the Show. It's been a great pleasure to be with you. I am always happy to share with you information that I can provide that has to do with music making and piano lessons, and to help you on your journey to your own music making. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you here next week. Take care.